Well, hi, and welcome to the Grace-Based Christian Coaching Building a Faith First Life and Business podcast for women who are ready to let go of their limiting beliefs and step into their most intentional and Christ-centered life possible. Today, guys, I am joined by Dana Gentry. Dana is a highly sought after expert on growth. She is the host of the Everything Life in Real Estate podcast and the owner of multiple Keller Williams real estate franchises that close over $1.5 billion in annual volume. Dana has a passion for teaching and intentional growth strategies for achieving a big life. She's a member of the John Maxwell High Capacity Leadership Group with John Maxwell as a personal mentor. As a business speaker, author, and coach, she empowers leaders to feel stuck so that they can experience the big life that they deserve by utilizing proven models and strategies to stop drifting and live intentionally. Dana's book, Restore 90 Days of Intentional Living in Life, Faith, and Business, is a powerful 90-day reader launching in February 3rd of 2026, and it can be pre-ordered now at restoredevotional.com. We'll talk more about all of that in a moment, but first, welcome to the podcast, Dana.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to be here. What an intro. I love it. Thank you.
Absolutely. We are so excited that you are here. I've got to go back. It's fun. A lot of the women that I'll serve through grace-based Christian coaching over the years, one of the sub niches that I serve are influencers. And I found, it's fun. I found you way back when, 10 to 15 years ago, through the OG blog world and must have just connected over socials over time.
Isn't that
There's so
crazy?
much. I know that even though like typical influencing isn't quite what you or I do today, but the Lord connected us through now a mutual passion for leadership and growth that is grounded by God, you know?
I
So
love it.
with that, yes, let's start there. I love that you also love leadership, as do our listeners, right? This is just who the Lord has created us to be, and we're looking to be able to do that really well. So you recently wrote this and you said that leadership done well isn't about elevating yourself, but about creating space for others to rise. And that doesn't just happen by chance, but through intentional action, not perfection, not performance, just a steady commitment to showing up, to building habits that reflect your values like generosity, encouragement, and gratitude. Okay, so one, brilliant. One of the things that I love so much about that, Dana, is you said, quote, just a steady commitment to showing up.
Yeah.
And yes, I think that is it. But also, it is easier said than done. So I would love to ask and have you share with us, how do you, Dana, commit to showing up well consistently?
Yes. Great question. Okay. So I want to start by saying a lot of mentors that I've had have all kind of had the same mantra, the same thing that they've said, which is that people give up too quickly. Like we all, sometimes, especially in leadership or entrepreneurship, we get squirreled, for lack of better words, by other things. And so we give up quickly instead of going deep on certain things. So it's almost like a lot of people, before they even hit the stride or like the great part that's made it all worth it, they give up. They give up too quickly. And so having seen so many people do that in my world and get to learn from their failures, um, I just really have learned over the last 2 decades showing up and being consistent, especially through intentionality, is the difference maker, because a lot of people just won't do it. And transparently, it is difficult. I mean, there are some days that, quite frankly, I don't really feel like showing up, or you get worn out, or you get exhausted, or you have things going on with your kids or in your personal life or health chat. I mean, there's so many different things. And I think as long as you are looking towards that bigger picture and you are really solidified in, okay, this is my assignment from God. And I think that's another big piece of it, right? When you know, if you're calling, I believe kind of all of our callings are the same. If you're a person of faith, and that's just to honor and glorify God and bring people, impact the kingdom, right? But our assignments are different. And so we might be in an assignment for a year, we might be in an assignment for 10 years, whatever that looks like. But if you are looking forward and you understand the assignment and your calling, it's a little easier to consistently show up, especially even on the days that you don't want to. And then truthfully, I mean, it just is prayer. I mean, it's just praying for strength, and even on the days that you don't have it, I'm constantly like, Lord, give me more energy. Please give me more of your presence and give me more energy.
Thank you for sharing all of that. There are so many different angles I love about it. And one, just the reality of every day isn't, rainbows and butterflies. Some days are hard and we just need a break and a breather. And that is normal. And that's called being human. But I'd never quite heard it said like that. We all have the same purpose, but different assignments. That's
Yeah.
really good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I can give you a little example too. It's interesting. I have had one of my business coaches, she's been my coach for almost 10 years. Some people say you should get a new coach every 2 or 3 years. I switch out others, but she's like not allowed to leave me ever. But she said a couple of years ago, I remember she said to me, I was, trying to do too many things and running wild. And she said, Dana, I just want you to think about she said, why do you think you can do everything that you're doing, or something along those lines? And I said, well, I just feel like I can. And she said, I just want to share with you because I'm older than you and I've been doing this a lot longer. You can until you can't. And I was like, what does she mean by that? Like, I don't even know what she meant. I couldn't wrap my head around it because in my mind, I was just thinking, I can do all this. Like, I'll figure out a way. I'll make it work. And then ironically, about 4 months later, I lost my dad really unexpectedly. And it was like that moment where I couldn't, for the first time in my life, I was just like, okay, I can't lead these people right now. And I can't call all these people back. And I can't go to all these, like, I just couldn't. The grief, I had never experienced a time in my life where I physically couldn't, like, I just didn't have it to give. And so and I immediately thought back to what Terry said, you can until you can't. And I had never experienced that until this moment. And then I'm like, okay, I actually can't. And thank goodness God has placed really great people in my life around me. And so they kind of all stepped in. But we all are going to have that life's unexpected moment, right? Or moments where things pop up and you can until you can't. And then, you, through God's grace and prayer and all the things, we eventually, you kind of get your bearings back together. But we all have those times. And so I want to be respectful if someone is listening and going through a time where maybe they are like, okay, I just can't right now. We have to be aware of those moments and those times in our life.
Yeah. So it sounds like honoring those moments where we truly can't, because we're never created or made to do it all. That's just not reality.
Yeah.
That's not God's design. But continuing to keep your eye on what your God assignment is and vision, and put one step in front of the other. And I'll
Yeah.
share a personal testament to it because I think that's so on point. So there might be another podcast episode likely coming on this. I'm sure you can celebrate as a fellow entrepreneur. I've been doing this for 8 years now, and this has been the biggest year ever in business.
Amazing. Wow.
Thank you, praise God. But it didn't happen year 2, year 3. It happened year 8. But the cool thing is, Dana, that it's been the biggest year of business, and the next biggest year closest to it, I was working twice the amount as I am now,
Yeah.
which is,
Love it.
yeah, only God, only God. And so just what he can do when you live his way is really,
Yeah.
really beautiful. Really, really beautiful. Okay, so one of the other things that you had mentioned in that quote is habits that reflect values. And that is something that we prioritize at Grace-Based Christian Coaching, living life according to your God-given values. So if we can go 2 questions on there, Dana, we'll start with one. I would love to hear and know what has helped you to feel focused and confident in nailing down your values.
Oh man, great question. I think you discover your values a little bit along the way. I mean, I think you're going to have some that in fact, I actually just redid an entire branding thing for my business, for the book, for my personal. And so one of the big things we started with are my values, because I wanted the brand to reflect my values. And so I've been doing this exercise and all sorts of stuff. But it's been interesting to go through and see, because some of them I feel like were values that I knew early on. Like, they were values that you just know, right? Like you had like faith, for instance. I have really 6 core values, but one of my core values is faith. Okay, well, that has definitely had its ups and downs throughout my life. And at the same time, faith is one that's been a value that's kind of always been there. Another one is generosity. And so like I've just always really wanted to be a generous person. And that's been a big one. Sorry, there we go. I was trying to get rid of the noise. But then others have really come along the way, and I've really had to learn those and focus on those, like intentionality. That's a huge one. Excellence is another one. I've really learned over the years that one of my values is excellence. I want to show up with integrity and consistency and care. And I believe kind of how you do anything is how you do everything. And so, I want to be able to show up with excellence. Courage is another one that is one of mine, and it's really just all about committing before you feel ready. I've learned that over the last couple of decades in life and in business, but we think that we have to have the courage before we make a big commitment to do something. But what you'll find is most business owners, entrepreneurs, leaders, whatever category you want to put it in, they make the commitment before they're ready. They're like, man, I feel like I'm going to pee my pants, so I don't know if I want to do it or not. But it's like they make the commitment early, and that requires courage. So I think some of your values are just they're learned along the way, and then some are core that you feel like you've had forever. But I'll be honest, I mean, I keep mine in front of me. The people that work with me, my teams, I mean, we are big on our values, and you have to have alignment in your values. I have worked with I've had business partners that we don't have shared values, and it's never worked. I've had people that I coach that we maybe haven't had shared values. And while I'm sure I learned something and they learned something, it probably wasn't the best relationship. So really focusing on those as part of kind of everything that you do, I believe is one of the best things that you can do.
Amen to that. There's someone who needed to hear that today. Courage is essentially, right, feeling the fear and doing it anyway. That's what it is. That's what it looks like. Go for it. What is that thing that God is convicting you and placing on your
Yeah.
heart, and take a move? And I love that you had said that the visual aspect of it. That's something we'll talk about clients all the time. Not only figuring out, having it clear on what your goals are, but actually having them come to life on a hard copy, a piece of something, even if you can, which is really
Yeah.
nice. Such a
Well,
neat
and
background
you
on this.
and you mentioned habits, and I mean, what
Uh-huh.
better things to create habits in than your core values? I mean, if one of your values is generosity and you don't have a habit of giving or having a generous heart, then that there might be a misalignment there. And so I think working to create those habits in your core values is really, really important just for growth. I mean, for personal growth.
Yeah, I heard someone mention the phrase, when you create your goals, have them be like value-driven goals. I've never heard it quite framed that way. So one more thing on values, if you'll share with us to further solidify and crystallize, Dana, a story about your values and how when you were living your life, perhaps at one point, they became
Yeah.
misaligned, and what you did to recalibrate, if you will.
Yeah, great one. And that's a great question. And I can really kind of actually, that goes into a little bit about me writing the book. For many years, I would say I've been in the real estate industry now for 19 years. Next year will be my 20th year in the industry, which is so crazy to think. It just goes by so fast,
Yeah.
but it's so crazy to think. But I would say for the first 10 years, I was successful, but what I would say is I was semi-successful because I was really just winging it. Like I was a professional winger. Just didn't prepare for stuff, was not intentional about anything. And then right around year 9, 10, I met John Maxwell, and I was introduced to John at an event. One of my mentors brought me along to this leadership event, and John was the keynote speaker, and I got to meet him afterwards. But he talked about intentionality, and I had never really heard the word intentionality or intentional living or anything like that before. If I had, it hadn't resonated with me. You know what I mean? It's like I maybe heard it in passing, but that day I really heard it, and I really understood. And it was almost like God just kind of dropped it in my heart. This is where you need to grow. And sometimes you can just like hear the Holy Spirit, like, okay, this is for you. And that's really what it was with intentionality. And so really, I kind of just I read every book on intentionality that John had written. I leaned in really heavily to learning what it looked like to be an intentional leader. And from there, I just started to put that into my into my life. And I made list of ways to be more intentional. I read one book that was a game changer, and it was Chase the Lion by Mark Batterson. It's like one of my life-changing books. Everyone, has those ones. That's it for me. I've probably given hundreds of copies of that book to people at this point. But in there, he talks about your time, talent, and your treasures, which I'm sure many of you have many of your listeners have heard. But it's like, how intentional are you? And so after that point, I started thinking, okay, if I'm gonna live the life that God's called me to live, then I need to learn intentionality. It needs to be one of my values, and I'm gonna be intentional in my time, my talent, and my treasures. And I really stopped drifting is the word that I like to use, because I think a lot of business owners, a lot of leaders and entrepreneurs, they wake up one day and they're like, wow, I just drifted through the last 3 years, and maybe I was semi-successful, but with intentionality, they could have been a lot more successful. And so I just started to put it into practice, really, and things grew. Quite frankly, I mean, they grew. My life got more meaningful. I feel like my faith grew stronger. I was much more intentional in my faith. With my calendar, it was almost like I just started living life more on purpose instead of just drifting through things and winging things. And I mean, there's so many examples I could give you, but especially in leadership, just continuing to be more intentional. So when I was going through, I've done a lot of work with Rory Vaden's company, Brand Builders, over the last 2 years. And when I was really started that and going through that and feeling God say, like, okay, I'm getting ready I want to use you. I want to use you. I went through and kind of came up with the 4 pillars that over the last 2 decades, when I look back, have made the biggest difference in my life, because I don't have a college degree. I went to college, I dropped out. My parents are amazing people and have done great things, but it wasn't like I walked into this huge business, nothing like that. Very self-built, but I hate to even say that because it was God built, but you know what I mean? Not in that space. And so when I look back to the success that I've had over the last almost 2 decades, intentionality has been it. I mean, it has truly been like living out that value. And I can see times where I wasn't intentional and the outcome, and then times where I have been very intentional and the outcome that came with that. And it is drastically different. So long answer to your question. Sorry, but I'm so passionate, which is really what led to the book. And really sharing stories of intentional living for people.
Sure. The passion is so evident and so fun to witness. And so for the listener who is like, okay, that sounds great, and I'm on board and bought in, but I feel very overwhelmed. So you talk about, in that note, you talk about how the most transformative leadership moments in your life haven't come from bold moves or big wins, but from the quiet choice to think of someone else. Share with us, Dana, what is a favorite, quote, small moment, that one you've been given, and then 2 that you've received?
Oh man, your questions are so good. Okay. So I think a lot of times when people think about leadership, they think about themselves. And I look at leadership as servanthood. And I have not always been under that light, looked at it that way. That is something I definitely have learned over the last, years, decade. But it truly is about serving other people. And so, I have the honor of having at any given time, about 600 realtors in my brokerages that I lead, the leadership teams, my family. I mean, we're all leading people, right? Whether it's one person or whether it's thousands. And I really believe that I feel personally like I'm leading them, but more than anything, I've been stewarded to serve them. And I think that there's a little bit of a different there, and it does come in small moments. And so there are little things, like I'm trying to think of just some examples. This is a silly one, but I met with an agent one time, a realtor one time, and I was talking about her goals and things that she wanted to accomplish. And it wasn't just business questions I asked her personal questions too. And she said that as a family, they had a goal of visiting all of the national state parks, right? I can't remember how many there are, but there are tons of them. And so I jotted that down in my little, notes as I was taking notes. And then I went back, and in an intentional way, I keep a note app in my phone of things that I hear that people say. You have to be a great listener, right? In the small moments, you're usually listening more than you're talking. And so I jotted down my little note about her national state park, and Etsy is our best friend. So I had my assistant get on Etsy And who knew you can order this, you can order these like posters of all the national state parks that there are. And then when you visit one, you like scratch it off and it, you can see that you did that, right? So we ordered her that. I sent that to her and she just couldn't believe it. I mean, she was just blown away with the intentionality around that and just being able that I listened, that I noticed that in her, right? So that's just like one, that's the first one that popped into my head. But just little ways around being able to listen and to serve the people that you lead in those small everyday ways. Or when someone has something going on in their life, just a handwritten note card. Holy cow. I mean, the power of a handwritten note or a card goes such a long way in people's lives because they aren't used to that anymore almost.
That's right. It's about what I'm hearing you say is about creating space. It's going back to that word intentionality, and it doesn't have to be hard. It doesn't have to be complicated. It's showing up, it's serving, it's loving. Wow, that's what solid leadership looks like.
Yeah. And I think if God has brought people to you that you are stewarding or leading, then that's a requirement. I mean, to me, I feel a lot of conviction around, okay, I need to figure out a way to touch these people's lives, not only in their business, but in their lives also in just these small ways that they will let them know that I care about them as their leader.
So, okay, connected to this, you had mentioned your definition of intentional leadership isn't about doing everything perfectly, which I know a lot of women need to hear that today, right? Let's say it one more time. It's not about doing everything perfectly at all, but it's about doing the right things consistently with others in mind. Okay,
Yes.
consistency in the nearly 10 years that I've done this, that is the it factor for women. And I love that you had mentioned you have a coach that you worked with for quite some time too. And that's sort of grace-based Christian coaching, the average client around for 3 to 4 years, our longest going on 7 or 8 at this point. So we love consistency. We love long-term growth, and that's what I see as the core it factor. So we talked about a little bit about that earlier, but if you want to expand upon how to do consistency well, Dana, and or what helps you to prioritize well when we can be so distracted by so much noise and chaos around us.
Yeah, well, distraction is huge. I actually have a quote that I always tell people all the time, and I don't remember where I got this from, but I always say if the enemy can't derail your salvation or your life, like he'll try to distract your purpose. And a lot of times, I mean, that's the case, right? Like a lot of the enemy tries to get to us through distraction, um, because the enemy doesn't want us to be consistent, right? Because that's when great things happen when we compound consistency. So I think it takes a lot of intentionality to be consistent and back to the perfection. Like I fail every day. I love that John Maxwell has a book coming out he's working on right now. I think let's see, how old is John getting ready to turn? Oh shoot, I can't remember, maybe 78, 79. Anyway, and his goal is to write, I think it's 106 books before he turns 100, but his one right now is all about failing forward because he says no one's perfect, right? I mean, besides Jesus, I always say, but I mean, we fail every single day and it's a learning from those failures and it's not about perfection. And like you said, a lot of women, I mean, that's what we struggle with, especially right now you and I are recording this and Christmas is in, I think 9 days. I'm not sure when you're going to release this, but I even find myself like, are all the presents perfect? And is my party going to be perfect? And is our Christmas Eve going to be, I mean, it's natural, I think, especially for women to feel that way. But a lot of times what I think of is, okay, nothing's going to be perfect. And so I want to put intentionality behind everything that I do, right? It's more of that your family or your friends or your people that you lead or whoever, they know that you put the intentionality and the preparation behind it. And it's never going to be perfect, but it's what they see that you build. But on the consistency front, um, it's a choice to show up every day and to stay consistent. I mean, it just really is. And we kind of touched on this in the beginning, but for me, I think I'm constantly thinking about what the next 10 years is going to look like. I'm a very like let the future pull me type person, not really as like a past person. I'm more of okay, this is really where I know I want to be in 10 years. And so I know that because I'm pulled to that almost future based, that consistency has to be the key. It's the secret sauce. I am crazy with my calendar. One tip for anybody listening, if you aren't already, I mean, I went back, I don't know, 8 or 9 years ago to a paper calendar, 30-day at a glance. And it goes everywhere with me. I mean, everyone knows when they ask me anything, I'm like, well, number one, I have to check with Heather, my assistant, because she kind of rolls with my whole calendar. But two, I have to look at my paper calendar because it's so hard to be consistent with your time and with your calendar for me, if you don't have that. So I think time, my husband and I sit down the week after Christmas. I shared this with you before we hit record, but we go to Florida to visit my in-laws, take the kids and everything. And for one whole day, Adam and I take our vision. We create vision boards. We do that with our kids, but then just one-on-one, we take our calendars for the next year. We take our goals. We take our finances. We take everything and we look at it. Okay, this is where we want to be next year. This is what we want to accomplish. This is what we feel like God's calling us to do. And then where do we need to be more consistent, and where do we pre-plan into our calendar the things that we know, like one-on-one time, like family vacations, like experiences that we want to do with the kids. And we just stay consistent with that. We've done that now for probably 6 years, very, very consistently. And when you implement those small, consistent things, like the fruits show up. I mean, they really do. You can see the fruit from being consistent in those things.
So there are two different areas. I love so much all the shares. Like this is talking about those things. Like this is my love language. This is so fun to
Yeah.
nerd out on these things with you, Dana. But two important relationships in your life. Where I want to get to your husband and some things with that in a moment because I love and adore what y'all are doing together. But just a little behind the scenes. You guys, John Maxwell is one of her personal mentors, which is so cool. So share with us the story about how that even came to happen, Dana.
Yeah. So,
Yeah.
oh my gosh, I love John so much. He's literally like a father figure to Adam and I. He actually led my husband to the Lord. I mean, so many things. This will be 10 years that John has mentored me and Adam both. But I'll tell you how I met John, and it was through one of my dearest mentors and business partners, Linda McKissick, who I do my podcast with. I worked for Linda, and Linda does something really great, and I've learned this from her, and this is a great lesson for people listening who are leaders. She put me in rooms that I could never have gotten in on my own. And Linda put me in a room with John Maxwell at an event, but I hit a goal. She took me to the event. It was a $12,000 per ticket event. And so I at that time, I never could have, one, I couldn't even have gotten the invitation to get in the room, but two, I probably couldn't have afforded it even if I, wanted to. And that was probably about 11 years ago, I guess now. Yeah. And that's how I met John. And then here's the other thing that Linda's done so well that I intend to do with the people that I lead. Number one, she got me in the room, but it was my job to stay in the room. And that's a lesson in itself. But then number two, some of those things are expensive, to be honest. And I have had the mindset of it is an investment, not an expense. And I think some people will say, oh my gosh, I would never pay $10,000 to attend an event, or I would never pay whatever to do this coaching program. It's way too expensive. It's way too much of an expense. And every single time I hear people say that, and by the way, I recognize sometimes there are financial constraints. And also if it's important to you, like you'll make a way, you'll figure it out. And I also believe that. I've done that throughout my whole entire life. But I did whatever it would take to stay in the room. And I mean, transparently, and I say this in a very humble way, that, Adam and I have a budget of 6 figures a year to invest in ourselves, between coaching, between mentorship, between masterminds and events and getting in rooms with John. I mean, we have a goal to be with John 3 to 4 times a year. And it's because our return on investment with any time we can be with John it's way 4 times, more than 4 times. It's just, so Linda got me in the room. I've worked very hard to stay in the room with John. Another thing with John is, and he teaches this lesson around mentorship, and people will only mentor you as long as you're doing what they tell you to do. And so, when you're in a mentorship or coaching relationship, perfect space that you do this every single day, you don't want to coach people that you're telling them the same thing over and over, and they're not doing what you know that they need to be doing, right? And it's the same with the mentorship with John. I mean, we implement the things that we learn from John, and we show him that we've implemented those things because we want to stay in that relationship with him.
So as you think back to your 10 or so years walking and learning from him, what is, let's say, a favorite thing that he shared and or a way, one specific way your life is different because of
Oh
what
my
you
gosh.
learned now?
There's so many. There's so many. Um, oh, let me think. Okay, I think one of the, I shared with you earlier, one of my values, I've talked a lot about intentionality. That's the biggest thing I've learned from John, but I'm going to go in a different direction. One of my values is generosity. And I heard John say one time in an event, we were in London, England, and we went on a big mastermind for his Equip Foundation to London, and it was amazing. I mean, when you travel with John, you do things that regular people can't do. Like I don't know how he pulls it off, but I mean, he shut down the Queen's train and we rode on the Queen's train to the Windsor Castle, and no American group had ever been able to dine in the Windsor Castle, and our phones had to go in these locked boxes and everything. It was unreal. But one thing he said there really, really impacted me, and he said, "You can never be outrageously generous when you're broke." And I hear a lot of people, and I'm just gonna, if I can just be real, I hear a lot of Christians, especially a lot of people of faith, who look at money in a different way than the way that I've been taught to look at money. And it's almost like they feel guilty for wanting to make more money, or wanting to build wealth, or whatever that looks like, right? And what I've learned from John is you can't be outrageously generous when you're broke. And what he means by that is we should all want to make as much money as we possibly can, because the more you make, the more you can give. And God doesn't want us to live some meek lifestyle. He wants us to live a great lifestyle, but he wants us to honor and glorify him because he's the source of it all, right? And so I think when I heard John say that, because I work with a lot of real estate agents who quite frankly will say, "No, I'm fine. I make enough money. I don't need to make any more money," or "I don't want to make any more money." And that always was a little bit of a trigger for me, because I always thought, after learning that from John, like, who wouldn't want to make more money? Why would you not want to build your wealth and to make more so that you could give more, so that you could have the opportunity? One of my goals is I always want to be able to say yes, meaning when someone is in need, or if it's a small thing or a big thing, and God lays it on my heart to give to that, I never want financial reasons or money to be a reason why I have to say no. And so I think just learning the mindset around wealth and around generosity and around money from John has been so impactful, because I was not raised like that. And it really was a mindset shift for me.
So to sum it up, advice for someone who is seeking a mentor. Quick hit, what would you say?
Who's seeking a mentor, find a mentor that aligns with your values. Find a mentor who has done what you are looking to do. Very important. Don't listen to people who haven't done what you're looking to accomplish. You need to find someone who, like, you want to live their life. Maybe not all aspects of their life, but one aspect of their life. This is another quick little story that John said one time on mentorship. If they've really succeeded in one area, like, look at that. So for example, John said, he loves to play golf, and he always tells the story. He wanted to be a really great golfer. And so he said, would I hire Tiger Woods to teach me how to be a fantastic golfer? Yes. Would I hire Tiger Woods because I want to emulate a marriage that he had? Probably not. So, find a mentor that's done something in the area that you want to do. But then I would say third thing is do what they mentor you to do to keep the relationship.
So, speaking about growth, you and your husband are passionate about growth and growing together. You shared with us one of the habits that y'all do every year. Love that, adore it. Someone had mentioned that's something we like to do as well. And we've done traditionally on walks, but something else someone had mentioned is like go to a fancy hotel and enjoy like lunch,
Yeah.
or like get, coffee and tea and just do it over that. And I just adore that idea, because I feel like your space, there's a, real estate agent, you would appreciate that. Your space matters, your surroundings matter. But as you think maybe more about your growth and your plans and everything together, Would love to hear because the Women of Grace-Based Christian Coaching, we love a resource. We love a recommendation. And so in that, as you've grown over the years, or maybe even things you're looking to do, in that vein, what is a retreat or resource, something that you would recommend for people, women who want to pursue their marriages intentionally together?
Oh, I love that. Okay, well, oh man, okay, I'll have to think of so Adam and I do have a resource on growing intentionally together. Let's see. I'm trying to think of the best way. I can send it to you. Also, if your listeners want to, I have a little thing set up. If they want to follow me on Instagram, it's Dana G Gentry, and just DM me. Let's just say Grace Space. How about that? That'll be the best way. That way I'll know. I'll send you the resource on growing intentionally with your spouse or your significant other. Um, I'm trying to think of a book or something that Adam and I mean, we have invested in a lot of masterminds that we've just done together. Maxwell has a lot of ones for spouses that we've done. Um, oh man, and really it's just mentors. I mean, Linda and Jim McKissick have been great mentors to us who've grown together as a spouse. Um, one thing I will say too, just to share a little and be a little transparent, I think you know this about me, but I was married before Adam, and I did not have a marriage that we both wanted to grow, and not to speak negatively or ill, but it was really, really important to me because I see so many of people I know, so many of my friends, so many people who are in marriages where one person is really, really growing and the other person is not growing, and that is not always a good thing. So, if you are listening and maybe you are in that space, find a resource, or I'll find some and we can link them to the episode too. And then I'm happy to send you the one that Adam and I built out for people. We've taught it in many, many events that we've spoken at. It's just like 6 things that you can do together to grow intentionally in your marriage and to focus on growth. But I think we see that a lot where one person is growing and the other one is not, and that's hard. It's a very difficult situation to be in.
Thank you for getting up to. I know listeners are going to love and appreciate. Thank you for
Yeah.
speaking. Okay, so we'll begin to wrap up on a fun note. You split your time between two fabulous places, Charleston and Lexington, Kentucky. I'm Charlotte-based as well, so Carolina gal. Would love to hear a couple of your favorite Charleston favorites, things to eat, places to shop, do, whatever comes to mind.
Oh man, I have a whole note. People message me all the time and say, I'm coming to Charleston. What are my recs? A couple things. Okay, so Charleston recs that I love. We live in Mount Pleasant. Downtown also is super great, but I would say one venture out. So don't just stay downtown Charleston. Like come over to Mount Pleasant, go over to Sullivan's Island. There's so many great places. Obstinate Daughter on Sullivan's Island is all time one of the best Italian pizza pasta places. It's super nice. You definitely will need a reservation. If you're beaching, we like to beach at Sullivan's Island in Mount Pleasant. We live in the Old Village, and we got married at the Post House. It's right behind our house, and it is such a great place. They just got a Michelin key also this year, which is amazing. So if you're looking for like a boutique stay feel, they only have 7 rooms. It's great. Highly recommend the Post House, or at least have dinner there. And then do a little tour around the Old Village. Just you can rent e-bikes, just you can walk. The Notebook was filmed on Pitt Street in the Old Village, which is really kind of cool. There's a new like trendy teeny show, Outer Banks, that's filmed in our neighborhood that everyone loves to come and and watch when they're filming. But you can go down to Pitt Street Bridge and watch the sunset. Also, Nico is a great place to have dinner. I mean, there's just so much. And then downtown, of course, so much history. Shopping, Gwen's is probably my favorite in Mount Pleasant. Great place. They have really, really wonderful things there.
It's so fun. So everyone's considering when they'll make their next or first Charleston trip because it is
Yes,
just such a special place.
it's
Yes, thank
great.
you for
So
sharing
great.
those with us. Okay, so as we begin to end here, Dana, oh man, this has been just so lovely and so fun and enlightening. You clearly have such a passion and drive and results behind your intentional way that you live and lead. And so share with us what else you would want to add about your book, Restore, where people can find it and when. The bonuses too, because I feel like at least the Grace-Based Christian Coaching listeners, your vision board template, I feel like the
Yes.
cost the book, they would just appreciate even that in and of itself. So share with them all of the things to begin to learn more about what exactly this is and how they can begin to learn more.
Yes, thank you so much for the opportunity to be able to share about it. I'm super excited about it. So it is a 90-day daily reader. And the intention is that you read one, 2 pages a day just to really get you going more in intentionality. I share a lot of great stories of leaders I've been able to learn from, but really the purpose is just in a world full of distractions and burnout. It's easy to find that you're drifting, and we talked a lot about that today, but you may even feel disconnected from your purpose or underwhelmed by the progress that you've made. And so Restore is really an invitation to just realign, refocus, and rise into the life that you were created for. And my prayer and my hope and my intention is that it inspires readers to live a more intentional life, that there's exercises, there's great questions. So if you go to restoredevotional.com and pre-order prior to February the 3rd, yes, there are great bonuses. You get a copy of first you get access to the first 10 days. It's a PDF. So that way you can read the first 10 days before the book actually comes out. You get a copy of a study guide. My team built an entire really powerful study guide for the book also, with really great prompting questions on living more intentionally. You get that. You get the Canva vision board template that I love, and so many people love that. And then I did something really cool. My publishing company suggested this, and I was like, man, this is a great thing. But I built out a 90 song curated playlist. So there's one for Spotify, there's one for Apple Music, and it's just some, of my very favorite praise and worship songs and other songs that are on there. But you get access to that too if you pre-order. And then I have a bunch of bulk incentives too. I'm doing a Dana and Friends live virtual event the second week of February that has some super great speakers on there if you buy 30 copies or more. So if you have a team or anything like that, you can bulk order and get access to that. So lots of really fun things. And I'm so grateful. This was a huge goal of mine, and it was a lot of work for those people. Now I'm like, people who have written books, I have a whole new level of respect for, because it's a lot. It's a lot of work, but it's exciting to see the impact that it'll make.
And listeners can hear this too right now as you share the intentionality in the way in which you're launching your book and your bonuses. I don't know that I've ever quite come across as robust bonuses as you are all through Restore. So congratulate. It is very evident the heart of what you do and who you are through your book and your book launch. And I
Thank
know
you.
yes, truly. Listeners will really appreciate, in coaching, we're all about being future focused and action oriented and the exercises and things like that. And then breaking it down into a quarter, right? Like this is doable, this is manageable, this is the jump start you will love for your new year. So thank you, Dana, for coming on the GSCC podcast and sharing with us and inspiring us and doing it, most importantly, a God-centered.
Oh, thank you so much for having me, and anything I can ever do to serve you or your audience, I'm here, and I'm just so appreciative for the opportunity. Loved getting to chat. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Dana.